DayZ has just released the new 1.26 update on the experimental servers for both PC and Xbox, and I'm going to show you everything you can expect to see in the next DayZ update. This update has completely reworked major DayZ survival mechanics, so if you're a hardcore DayZ fan, you're going to love these new features. Now do note that 1.26 experimental is a supporting patch for the upcoming DLC and strictly takes place on Chernarus and Livonia. The new DLC Frostline, including the winter map Sakau, is expected to release after the experimental testing. However, many of the features will be available on Chernarus and Livonia for us to showcase today. Let's first take a look at a brand new red fox which can be found across Chernarus and Livonia. Hey buddy. Now I do want to test if they attack chickens. Apparently not, although I'm not too sure what it's doing here. Now, I'm pretty sure in the alpha version of the game you could actually befriend a fox, although don't quote me on that, I might have actually made it up. But it doesn't seem to attack players, so in short it's just another animal to hunt for food, and it's quite easy to find because it makes this horrible scream. Skinning a fox provides you with a fox pelt, some bones and a couple of fox steaks. In addition to the fox, you can also now find hares. Now you've always been able to catch hares with the use of a snare trap, but you can now physically see them roaming the map. And you'll struggle to catch one of these with the use of a melee weapon as they're just so quick. But if you have a firearm, you can hunt them quite easily. Skinning a hare will give you a hare pelt, a couple of rabbit legs and some bones. Snares, which are crafted with sticks and metal wire, have received a few changes. They now require bait and will catch different animals depending on the bait. I believe it's an apple to catch a hare and a worm to catch a chicken. Do note a chicken or a hare doesn't actually have to trigger the trap, it just happens after a set amount of time, whether there's a physical animal nearby or not. What is nice is that the traps now play a new sound to indicate when it has been triggered. Snares have received a buff with an increased chance of catching animals via the trap. Now it should require less time to catch an animal. In addition, traps will take less damage on a catch, meaning you can reuse them for longer. So if you do happen to be in the area for a while, it may now be worth setting up a few traps. You may have noticed earlier that when I skinned an animal, the meat was warm. This is because items in DayZ will now have temperatures and are dependent on their environment. So in this example, a recently killed animal is warm. However, if you were to come across an animal that had been dead for a while, you can expect the meat to be cold. This could be a great indication on whether there's another player nearby. It's now even more important to cook food, especially in cold environments, as eating hot food will warm your character up. However, do be careful as eating scorching hot food will hurt your character. It may now be necessary to defrost items by a fire, as some items can now freeze in cold environments. I can imagine this will be a particular challenge on the new map and the winter months of Chernarus. Fishing has received a long awaited overhaul to make it a bit more exciting. You can now find a fishing jig which can catch fish without the use of a worm. In addition, you can now craft improvised fishing hooks out of sticks, which should make fishing extremely accessible. All you basically need is a sharp item in DayZ and you can craft rags to make rope, to make a fishing rod, and then craft hooks out of sticks and you have infinite food. Do note, improvised bone hooks and normal fishing hooks are still in the game. A nice little change is you no longer need to craft a worm onto a hook and can instead just quickly attach it. The fishing action and chances have been changed and an audio and particle effect will indicate when you have caught a fish and should reel your catch. Eating more fish will now cause food poisoning rather than salmonella. You can now stack worms up to 5 as well as dig up multiple worms with the use of a shovel. There are now 4 different shemags in the game which can either be worn as a headscarf or as a mask. You can also now get a wolf trophy headdress. To obtain this, you must slay a wolf without the use of a headshot and then skin it. Shooting a wolf in the head will ruin your chances of obtaining the headdress. I actually really like this addition and I'm hoping that you'll be able to obtain a bear headdress in the future. Do note, it's no longer safe to eat wolf or bear meat as they are now infected with a disease. This was implemented as currently predators are an easy food source for highly geared players. The cargo size has been reduced on most jackets, pants and vests, with the size of various items adjusted to reflect this. The aim of this is to limit how much stuff you can carry, making you have to choose between which items you really want. The heat buff will now show 3 plus symbols to indicate its progression on the HUD, giving you a better understanding on when you should warm up again. It's important to stay warm as the common cold can now develop into pneumonia if left untreated. However, codeine pills and morphine can now be used to suppress the symptoms of the common cold as well as influenza. Once a player has beat the cold, you'll gain temporary immunity. Small quality of life changes include the ability to now climb on ledges while swimming. You're now only able to force feed a player while facing them. You can stack firewood up to 3. Active snowfall or rain will decrease the hearing of infected. Heat packs will now last longer, and you can now adjust the visibility, distance of terrain and objects in the settings. Although do note, this doesn't affect how far you can see players, so you won't be at a disadvantage if you play on low. The DayZ official hives have now been connected across maps, meaning your character can travel from Chernarus to Livonia and of course the new map once that's released. This means you'll now be able to bring specific items such as a Yellow King helmet from Livonia back to Chernarus. The in-game server menu has received some small changes. You are now able to filter servers depending on the map. In addition, a description box has been added for servers so you can get a gist of the server before you jump in. And finally, fog has received a complete rework. There will always be morning fog around the coast and in low altitude valleys on Chernarus, and the density of this will be randomised. On Livonia, there will sometimes be morning fog around the river, and the wind direction and speed has been changed to give us clues about the upcoming overcast. Now, before we end the video, I want to mention all the secret items that are in the game but not in the patch notes. I assume these items weren't mentioned as it will be part of the new DLC. Up first, we have 4 variations of the down jacket. We then have 3 new winter variations of existing backpacks. We have a winter ballistic helmet, a winter assault vest and winter Gorka clothing. We even have a new winter plate carrier, as well as 3 new ski goggles, which come with 3 different pairs of ski gloves. And how could I forget that also important winter ghillie. We also have a navy uniform, 4 new snowstorm hats, an OMK uniform along with a white boonie hat. We also have a bushlet jacket. We then have a new filter bottle which can be used to remove any common waterborne diseases. We have Cheatling tablets used to cure heavy metal poisoning, the new disease coming with the new map. We then have 2 new variations of mushrooms including shrooms and a cold water trout. We also have reindeers, which I assume will only be found on the new map. So, to conclude, while this update is very small and only adds a few features, it seems to lay the groundworks for the DLC, and if the secret items are anything to go off, we can expect a lot of new features. Let me know in the comments what you're most excited for.